Brad said he's ready when you are.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. If you'd stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we just got to go through some standard approval of routine items. Need a motion for the approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 9th. We have a motion for that.
So moved.
So moved by Amanda, seconded by Heidi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Need a motion to accept in order to file the minutes of the Committee on Special Education for 8/19, 8/24, 8/25, 8/26, and 8/30. We have a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Amanda, seconded by Heidi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. And lastly, motion to accept in order file the minutes of the Committee on Preschool Education, Special Education for 8/10, 8/26, and 9/7. So moved by Crystal, seconded by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We also need a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting held on August 16th. We have a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Amanda, seconded by
Second.
Crystal. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Okay, so we move to our 10-year celebration, and for everybody that came for this, we really appreciate that. Shorty, you have anything?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to let me talk, I'll do it.
Absolutely.
That's to your own detriment. You guys know that. So welcome back. Great school year, and couldn't be happier to be recognizing folks who are attaining that milestone of tenure in the either just have or in the next couple of days. We do have some dates that are a little odd for folks because they start a little bit after the school year, either 3 or 4 years ago. We want to congratulate them all. Not everybody could be here tonight, so we are going to recognize them all. We do have certificates for each person. I am looking to get photos of everybody who has tenure tonight so we can push them out on our social. So hopefully you were prepared for that. If not, I'm still going to get your picture and we're still going to do it. So thanks for coming. We hope that you'll enjoy a cookie, but we really do appreciate it. I speak for the board, and I'm happy to let other board members speak. Happy to have you here. Happy to have you receive tenure, and we hope we're able to talk to you again when we talk about the big R word, and that's retirement. So we're hoping you're here to make a career out of it. That's what we need. That's what makes school strong, and we're very happy to recognize you tonight and hope that you're here for a long, long, long time. And enjoy every single minute of that as much as possible.
Well said. So to get started, is Green Dwyer here? Can we go to the front and do this, or?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we'll go.
Like we know.
I have a little cheat sheet too. Megan Armstrong? Yeah. Move over here. Next to the cookies and that phone up. What's that? Okay. Use the water and she's not here. Joseph Collier. Christine Beckman.
I do want to get a photo of a picture. A picture of you with the president.
With the cookies.
Cookies out of the background. I know people like pictures. They just doesn't happen every day. Let's capture them. Very nice. Congratulations.
Here. Grab a cookie if I
Only one.
Thank you.
Debbie over there.
That's okay. Margaret.
If you want me to be in
Photo about all those pictures.
Candace Shield. Mary Hilliard. Tracy Moscow. Mike Sullivan is on the football field. Aaron Foster. And I know this one is here because I like to give her a hard time all the time.
Sarah McCormick.
Sarah McCormick.
No.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And we will make sure that other folks obviously get the certificates. But I do want to say one more time, thanks to those of you who are to be here. Congratulations to you all, and hopefully we're able to have a conversation again for this retirement time. If it's not me, we'll do some other superintendent, we'll say. I'm like, might be a little bit younger. Thank you so much. Drew, yes.
There's a lot of cookies.
Now, kind of got cookies if you want.
Yeah. Will's coming.
Absolutely.
Coming up to that.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead and pass those right out.
There you go. Good job, Will.
Yeah. Thank you. Come on, you're up.
Just getting back on track. Next is the EPC.
Okay, so getting back on track with the agenda. So we're going to start with the energy performance contract presentation. Mr. Ward, you can take that.
Yep, absolutely. And just to the folks who are here because they received tenure tonight, and anybody else, you're totally welcome to stay the whole meeting. We also understand that you need to be back in the classroom tomorrow morning, so if you feel the need to go, perfectly fine. Don't feel the pressure's on for you to stay. If you want to hear about EPCs and everything else, I know at least one of you has to stay to talk about field trips later on. But I just wanted to put that out there. Don't feel bad if you have to get out to take care of other things to be here at work tomorrow. Paul Lemoy from Schoolhouse and Steve Wickham from March Associates are here tonight. So you've got your construction management team in Schoolhouse, and you've got your design team in March Associates. Going to teach us a little bit or provide some information to us about EPCs, energy performance contracts. And the reason why we're talking about this is, as many of you know, when we opened our bids a while back, they were quite a bit higher than had been anticipated. So we're looking for any opportunity to save scope in our project through different means and creative means. And this is one possibility. So we wanted to make sure the Buildings and Grounds Committee had a presentation about it previously, not necessarily the same presentation. So we want to provide some background information for the entire board because later on in the agenda, if you're able to take a look at it, we're asking for the board to approve going forward with an energy performance contract, and possibly after executive session, we're looking to have the board name an EPC provider, so a vendor for that. But we'll have a conversation in executive session. We may or may not take action on that after executive session, but that's our one item after executive session that we have on our agenda this evening. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our gentlemen, so Steve and Paul.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. As Ben mentioned, back in April, we were substantially over budget. So a lot of work since then has been trying to figure out what scope items we can move out of the current bid package and into an alternative bid mechanism. And EPC is one of those. Typically, we would cut scope and rebid, and a lot of time those scope items would just get pushed off for a future project. And quite often, they wouldn't happen at all. So the EPC gives us an opportunity to recapture some of those. So on the next slide, if I can have Mike. Yep. The next one.
That's the status one. Still playing?
Yeah. So this is a list of things that we identified that could get moved out of our current scope of work. You can see at Marga Murphy, we've moved items into an EPC column that we'll talk about shortly. There's at least several items that we're going to do under the ARPA fund. That's the federal COVID program. There's a handful of items under the alternates to the current bid package. And there's items we decided to hold for phase 2. Those items they're important, but they're not critical. A lot of old door replacements here. The doors are okay, they're just beat up. We felt safe in saying, let's move that off a couple of years. So, I don't know if you're aware, but we're out to bid right now with this redefined scope of work. Bids open next Wednesday, the 21st. We did push our bid opening off a week to accommodate some of the GC bidders that wanted some more time. We have quite a bit more interest this time than we did last time. If you recall, we only had 2 GC bidders last time. This time we have 8. So hopefully that holds true. And you'll notice in that chart, a lot of the items that we're going to do under EPC are electrical. And that's because you have to be able to show that there's energy savings going on, and that's a lot of electrical issues, lighting, occupancy sensors, things of that nature. So having said that, and hopefully, if you have any questions, please stop us at any point. That's the list of items that have been moved out of the current scope. So if you don't see it up there, chances are it's still in the scope and we're still doing it under the normal bid procurement process. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who's got quite a bit more experience with EPC projects than I do.
Thanks, Steve. So I'll start by telling you that I'm a 32-year retired union electrician, so I've built a lot of these in a lot of public schools. The very last job I did before I retired was a year-long EPC project up in Eatontown Central School up north where I actually reside. So it's not a new concept. It's really a mechanism to get some work, and how do you pay for it? So everybody thinks that it's smoke and mirrors. How are we giving you I'll pick a number, $1 million worth of energy performance work, and saying it's no cost to anybody, or we're going to pay for it with energy savings. It's all a smoke and mirrors to a lot of people. Well, it's pretty simple. We use your building savings. So if you take, and I'll just use round numbers, and again, please stop me if you have a question. If you budget $100,000 for your energy, and that's whether you use propane or natural gas or electricity, all of those fuels together to pay for your energy bill, if you budget $100,000 a year, the EPC vendor is going to come in and say, we can guarantee that you're going to save X amount of dollars per year for 18 years. It's state regulated. This is reviewed by New York State Education Department. The whole process has to go through. They have to demonstrate that they're going to save money. So let's just say, for round numbers, they say we can save you $10,000 a year for 18 years. Well, we just generated an $18,000 project at no cost to you because you've already budgeted $10,000 a year. I should say $1,800,000. So, but you've already budgeted the money. So we're not going to change your budget. We're not going to change the numbers that you routinely approve every year. We're just going to move that money from paying your energy bill into paying for the construction work that we're going to do. The work is guaranteed by the EPC contractor. They're actually going to sit down, and when they get done, no matter who you pick, they're going to say, we're going to guarantee that you save $30,000 a year for the next 18 years. They're going to guarantee it in writing. I was the director of facilities at Peru School after I retired as a union electrician, and we had Siemens had performed an energy performance contract about 8 years before I got there, They could not meet their guaranteed energy savings, and they wrote Peru Central School a check for $32,000 every year that I was there, and continued to do that until the 18 years expired. So it's a guaranteed savings. They put it in writing. It's mandated by the state. They don't meet the guarantee. They have to pony up and pay for the money. There's a way. So an EPC works on two different levels. There is, as a school board can vote to say we're going to do an EPC project. It makes sense. We're going to do some extra construction work. As an electrician, I'm looking around and I'm looking at the number of lights that are out in this room, and I can see about 10 of them right over the top of my head. That if you replace them and made them LED, you wouldn't have to maintain them for probably 12, 13, maybe as long as 15 years, 20 years for the LED drivers. That you'd have no maintenance; they would work, which is how the guarantee works. The board can decide we're going to do an EPC. They get 80% state aid back. That's also a vehicle to help pay for the funding, because the state also kicks in money on the EPC. They'll give you state aid on the project. You can receive an additional 10% of aid if you go to the voters and say, look, we're going to do an EPC contract. It makes sense. If you approve this, there's no cost to the taxpayers because we're guaranteeing the savings over the 18-year period. But if you vote and you sign on and you approve it, the state says if you get your taxpayers to approve it also, we up the reimbursement from 80% to 90%.
I'm going to stop just for 1 second. So our actual numbers at Hudson
78 and 88.
78 and 88.
Okay.
For those of you taking notes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. There's also no change orders in an EPC contract. Anybody that's ever done a capital project, there's a whole slew of them. I just closed out a project that had over 100 in a 2-year project. There's no change orders. It's guaranteed. The scope of work that they define is the scope of work. If something costs more money during the EPC vendor is required to eat that additional cost and do the project the way they said they're supposed to do it. So what can you do with an EPC? Just jump to the next slide. Things you can do with an EPC. We talked about HVAC, mechanical upgrades. The electrical upgrades are easy. They're really quick. We call it low-hanging fruit because the second I change that light fixture from using 4,000, 5,000 watts of power down to an LED that's probably going to use a few hundred watts, there's instant energy savings. It's really easy to identify. It adds up very quickly. LED lighting, and I'll be honest with you, the day I walked in here to open up bids the first time, I looked around and I'm like, why aren't we talking about an EPC contract? Your school is primed to do an LED lighting retrofit. Lighting controls and upgrades. There are ways when they change the lights to LED lighting, the lighting becomes a much higher level of technology to where I'll say these 2 rows, if it's all glass and if all that was glass to the outside of the building, these 2 rows would automatically dim down and the other 3 rows would be a little bit brighter. So the light level would be the exact same across the room, but these light fixtures would automatically sense that there's more daylight coming in from those windows. So again, they would reduce from probably running at 75 or 80%, they might be able to reduce down to 60%, again, saving more money. So the lighting controls, I found that every LED lighting project I've ever done, we wind up putting dimmers in because the first thing a teacher does when they walk in the room is they complain that it's too bright. So we add the dimmers in, and every time a teacher activates the dimmer and runs it from 100% down to 75%, again, you're saving more money. And all of those costs factor into the way you're going to use the building. Building automation systems, simply tightening up how you program and use your building. Again, as a former director of facilities, you know, your director of facilities is charged with, at some point in time in the morning, turning the boilers on and getting the building warm enough that it's warm for students when you open the front doors. It's sometimes tightening that up. Instead of starting the boiler at 5 a.m., maybe we can start it at 5:45 and we save 45 minutes of energy because we can get the building up to temperature in that amount of time. So sometimes just the building automation system, the programming of that, running some of the pumps at a lesser speed and still moving water. All of those things can happen in the building automation system, and we can wind up saving money there. We can building envelope. If the windows just need some extra caulking, maybe some extra insulation sprayed in around them, all of those things fit into an EPC. Again, any place that we can save energy is a place that we can make money to pay for additional work in the project. Window replacements fit. I'm doing right now a job in northeastern Clinton that is doing an EPC, and out of that is about $350,000 worth of windows. And we basically said to the EPC vendor, we want to replace all the windows. So you find enough EPC work to pay for all those windows. Figure it out, find it, and come back. And they did. They figured out a size project that would fit those. You can also do solar. There's a whole lot of things that also fit into EPCs. We aren't really talking about a solar project here, but we could. The other thing that I know EPCs are good for, and they like to do it, is they'll put metering into the energy system so that you can use it as an educational tool for students. So you can actually show. I put on solar arrays, and there's a television monitor in the hallway that tells the students that every single day you save X number of kilowatt hours by that solar panel running. So teachers can use it as an educational tool for the students too, to realize that energy savings is important. Next slide, please. So I told you a little bit about New York State law. New York State law was written, this became a reality in 1994. It basically mandates that this project is only viable and state ed will only approve it if we can guarantee to them that that the project we're going to do is paid back with simple money in 18 years' time. If it takes 18.5 years, it doesn't qualify under state ed, the project will get rejected, it'll get sent back. So it has to be able to pay itself back with energy savings in 18 years. Again, it's highly regulated. They probably, Steve will probably tell you, they audit and review an EPC project much more than they will the project that you have out to bid right now. This will take longer to get approved for state ed than the regular project will, because it's highly scrutinized, again, because there's a lot of people guaranteeing you that what they say they're going to do is actually able to be achieved. So we'll talk about combining your capital project and your energy project. And this really came about, as Steve said, because we realized that on bid day, you want to do X amount of work and you just didn't have enough money to be able to pay for it. So how do we get you there? I brought this today because coincidentally, Chazy Central School up in my region, I'm on their facilities committee helping out with their project management team up there. They would like to do a $13 million project, but they're pretty confident they can get about $10 million approved by their voters. So we moved into the EPC to do a lighting retrofit there to pay for almost $2 million worth of construction work for the exact same way we're trying to do it here. The projects would mesh together. The EPC vendor, no matter who it is that's selected, would use your same architectural firm. So if we're designing, if Steve has already designed 4 or 5 rooms with new LED lights, and I know that we talked about a library, all of those things, the lighting that we do in the rest of the building is going to match and be the same brand and have the same technology, because they have to go to your architect, and your architect is the one that writes the specifications, your architect is the one that draws the drawings, and your architect is really the one who does the submission to SED with the EPC vendor. So it's kind of a marriage. They don't go and manage this all on their own. They use the people that you already have. As part of the project, they would hire your construction management team, the architectural team. They really try hard. If you've got a capital project already bid, which by the time, if we go through with this happens, they try and work with the vendors that are already on site, because it's a whole lot easier to have one electrical contractor and one mechanical contractor than it is to start having 2 or 3 contractors, and and then you wind up with a finger pointing thing. So they really work hard at trying to make sure that the team works together and flows. We'll talk about the capture of lost or delayed scope. I think we already talked a little bit about. COVID came and we wind up with the financial situation we are. Is it getting a little bit better? I think it is right now. I'm optimistic that the number of bidders that are interested, I think a lot of that has to do with the timing that we're bidding now. People are finishing their busy summer season and they're looking to find work for next summer. You're really bidding at an opportune time for them to set themselves up for a year from now. Anybody can see the gas prices at the pump, they're coming down just a little bit. I think all those things are, hopefully will work into our favor on bid day. But there, so with the EPC, there's a whole lot of moving parts to this that I'd like to tell you that I could say today. I'd like to propose we're going to do a $1.4 million EPC project. Your cost is going to be X. Your payback is going to be 17.9 years, and we're ready to go. There's a whole lot of things that are involved in that. One of them is a detailed energy audit. So the company, they came in and kind of looked around and started this process. They've been around, but they haven't gone in and they haven't really taken a deep look into all of your facilities. They've relied on your electric bills. They've relied on some information from staff, from your director of facilities, but they haven't really come in and said, okay, we can, anybody's had a home energy audit, they make tools that can measure how much air is blowing through the seals in your doors and windows, right? They can do all of those things to decide, where you can pick up and save some energy in the building. They haven't done that yet. So to give you a good answer, and they came through with a proposal. I don't want to share numbers because the numbers I share won't be accurate beyond tonight. And they've got to go and do a deep dive into the project to be able to come back with a hard number. The thing about the EPC, if you move forward with it, is it's kind of like going to a grocery store, right? We can put anything in the cart we want, and we don't have to put anything into the cart, we just reject it. You can basically say at the end of the thing, we don't even want to do it. And there would be a small cost for them having done the detailed energy audit if you decided this just isn't for Hudson Falls Central School, we're not going to do it, they'd be looking for money back. But if you decide to go forward with it, if you went forward with a $300,000 EPC project or a $2.1 million EPC project, the design and the deep dive and the energy audit that they would have to do would be absolutely factored into the price of the EPC, and there would be no cost to the district. So moving forward, the only cost you're going to have is if you decide 2 weeks from now we don't want to do an EPC. They'd expect to get paid for doing the detailed energy audit. It's an audit you could use later, but that's the one thing that. But if you move forward with any size project, they would incur that fee into the project. So the procurement method, we talked a little bit about that. We're now into. We've got the proposals back. We need to get that detailed energy audit, and we really need it for a lot of things. We need it to see. Steve had said we put the boilers in as a bid alternate. Maybe on bid day, the boilers come in with a great price on the capital project, and we say, you know what? Even your EPC estimate says the boilers are going to be $700,000, but the bids on bid day come in at $610,000. We'd be crazy not to put the boilers in the capital project and do something else with the EPC. So that's why there's a whole lot of moving parts to where we really want to wind up with. And bid day next week is really one of the biggest pieces to that. And then the second one would be getting the actual detailed energy audit back and figuring out exactly what we're able to do with the amount of money that we can generate with energy savings. So I don't know if I've confused you all or if you have questions, but I'm happy to answer.
I'm going to ask one question and then open it up.
Sure.
So is there ever a time, and I know the answer to this question, to be fair, is there ever a time where a district would put funds into an EPC to cover a large amount of scope like boilers?
Yes. Yep, you could do that because you could say that I want to do $1.4 million worth of work, but the EPC says I can only generate $1.3 million worth of work, worth of energy savings. So there's $100,000 shortfall there. At that point, we have to figure out another way to fund the $100,000. And I can say I've not done that very often, but it has been done to get to the finish line. You know, if you're that close to doing, I know we're talking boilers is one of the big things. If you're that close to getting a complete boiler replacement and upgrading your boiler room, you know, if I said, hey, you know, we can do all of the lighting in your school district and we can do all of that work and we've got $175,000 shortfall. I know some numbers have been shared with you before, 195, I think was the number, Dan. If I came back and said, well, you know what, the number is 225,000, but this is what I can do for you, and realize that everything's an estimate until I give you that detailed energy audit. Then I'm going to put it in writing, and we'll put it into a contract, and we'll say, this is what we can do for you, and this is how much money. And it can be all the way, Steve and I were talking, the EPC can be all the way to, there was a horrific number that the EPC vendor shared with the design committee yesterday. And even shocked me when I saw it. But understand that we can go from a zero impact to the district, all the way up to doing however much work you want to do. It's just a matter of how much money we want to supplement into the EPC. If you just say, we want to do whatever work the EPC can pay for, and that's it, then we can do that project, and there can be a zero impact to the district.
Thank you.
Yep.
Could I add a couple? I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead, I was gonna have your
So
questions.
it's hoped that this work with the EPC happens concurrently with our capital project. So we're not waiting another summer for the EPC work to get underway. Now, that may or may not work with our boiler room because of lead times, but all the lighting and the sensor work should happen next summer along with our capital project. So we're not blowing your buildings up 2 summers in a row. The other thing is, this sounds really good. Mr. Dumb Architect, how come you didn't pitch this in the beginning and say, let's do one of these ETC contracts? Hudson Falls has not done an ETC contract in the 18 years I've been working with the district. And sometimes owners think, I will save that energy savings for myself a bit. But with the EPC, you use that energy savings to pay the EPC contractor and the design work. That's the difference. There have been times when people have looked unfavorably on EPCs. This district has been one of them in the past, but we think this is a good fit for our predicament here with our costs.
Steve, can you explain to the rest of the board, since we had the committee meeting itself, but based on the fact that if we don't go with EPC, as far as time
that's right.
frame on the phase one?
One of the slides I showed earlier on the screen shows all the work that we've taken out of our project. And down at the bottom, you can see that we're estimating we're saving about $4 million by moving the scope of work. If we don't do an EPC, all that EPC stuff either gets lost for another project, or it causes us to be over budget. And I don't want to be over budget again. I don't like being over budget. It doesn't happen to me very often, and I really don't like it. I don't like coming to the board and saying, we're back to the drawing board, we gotta start over. So that's why when Paul suggested EPC and I learned more about it, I thought, I think this is a good fit for what we're doing here for this week.
Sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, we'd have to choose whether we want the auditorium done, we want the library done.
Yeah, at that point, we
Boilers
gotta
are
look
being
at
done.
big scope items.
Yes.
Right. Our current plan is all those big items that you promised the voters, the auditorium, the library, the secure entrances, those are also in the budget.
Other questions?
So if the contractor has to guarantee for 18 years, they have to be pretty accurate with their numbers because they don't want to be writing checks every year.
Correct.
So with the cost of energy, with the cost of everything else that's going on right now, how do they do that?
Well, like sometimes they lose, as I told you. Siemens wrote a check to my school district every year because they relied on putting a cogen in my building because the price of natural gas was incredibly low and the price of electricity was high. So they ran the cogen about 10 hours a day using natural gas to make energy inside my school. And after about 10 years of doing it, I called them up one day and I said, this thing is costing me money. And they're like, oh, no, it's not. Well, we ran the numbers and the price of natural gas, and it was costing me about $10,000 a year to generate the electricity that they say they were trying to save me. So at the end of the day, I said, look, I now have a really big standby generator, and I'm shutting the thing off because it's not saving me money anymore. And they agreed. And so the companies that do this, the good companies that do this, have done it for a while. They use market trends. They're not, which is why when we handed out estimates, I'm really reluctant to try and share numbers until we've got something concrete. Your EPC vendor at a facility meeting shared some numbers. I really wish he hadn't, because he figured out that the numbers maybe weren't really all that accurate when he started doing a deep dive. I want to give you a concrete number that I can say, that's what we're going to deliver for you, that's what we're going to guarantee, and they're going to guarantee it in writing, and the state of New York is going to force them to guarantee it. So you can bet that they're estimating high, and they're making sure they're covering their bets. They've been doing this a while, and they are not in the habit of writing $30,000 checks like Siemens had to do.
So the follow-up question is, 18 years is a long time. What happens if this company doesn't even exist at that time?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I can ask. Again, it's guaranteed, and regulated through the state of New York. I don't know.
So I reached out to Larry Paltrowitz with that exact question, and he talked about usually those providers are bonded for that contract to perform. So that's his understanding of the process. But we would have to really have Larry, if we get to the point where we're contracting with somebody, have to really make sure that that is reviewed by Larry and anybody else who needs to have review it from his end to make sure that we're protected out to the 18 years.
Yeah, because performance bond is great, but again, 18 years is a long time.
Right, absolutely. Because 18 years, a lot of change could happen around this table in 18 years, I would suspect. But maybe not. We want to make sure that we're not leaving the people behind us with an issue. I'll say it that way. I was going to say a big lemon, so I guess I just said it, right? That's important to me. I know it's important to you guys. We're not trying to make something that other folks have to deal with after we're gone.
And I would say ultimately, when I walked in on bid day and we realized that the market wasn't going to support the project, I wanted to be creative and say, how can Steve and I get together, and how can we give you the project that you told the voters you were going to build with the money that they were going to put into the capital project? How can we pull a rabbit out of a hat here and get you back that project? And it isn't the first time I've been creative and tried to figure out, how we make lemonade out of lemons. So that's, in the COVID era, we've all been getting really good at trying to figure out how we can make your projects work, and how, what can we move around or delay, or sometimes it's a bid strategy. We've had construction projects start in the fall, because when is a contractor the hungriest? When they're getting ready to lay off all their employees for the wintertime, right? So if I said to somebody, the school district is entertaining working a second shift at Mr. Ward's former school, we did that, and we remodeled some bathrooms throughout the winter. The contractor was really hungry to go get that job because he could keep 4 or 5 key employees employed all winter long, didn't have to lay them off, didn't have to worry about are they coming back next year. So he was really excited to bid that project. So some of it is just bid strategy and the timing of when the stuff comes out and getting people interested in the project. And we've reached out, since we put this back out to bid, I've reached out to a few. One of them is the contractor that did that job, and they weren't on the bid list last time. They are on the bid list this time, and they're excited to hopefully work with Mr. Ward again. So we're hoping that, numbers are going to come in Wednesday a lot better than they did the last time. So.
And there's a lot of pros, but one of the cons with the EPC is, as Paul mentioned, it's got to be resubmitted as I can't use the information, or I can't just say, you've approved the project already, which they have. Now they want to see all the calculations and all that stuff. So my drawings are pretty much done. All we have to do is make the calculations to prove the samples. But that is a negative. We have to access it.
And there are a couple other moving variables. There are energy rebates that we can't, we won't know what energy rebates are available until we're ready to actually execute the contract and we know what we're actually going to do. Then we can figure out all those rebates. There's a maintenance savings that we've got to sit down with Dave and we got to try and figure out how much money every year is Dave going to save if he doesn't have to have somebody come through and replace ballast and lamps. So there's a dollar amount to that. That dollar amount figure can be used in the cost savings to be able to generate money. But we got to make sure it's an accurate number because again, we're asking Danforth to guarantee, or you're asking your EPC vendor to guarantee that savings. So they're not going to let you say it. Dave said he can save $50,000 a year in maintenance costs when they know it's probably like $12,000. They're just not going to inflate that number just to get you more of a project. So.
Yeah, other questions?
Sure.
So the first part is having to go back to state ed. How long do you anticipate that taking? Is it just a lengthy process then?
So the drawing preparation is done. I'm done with the drawings. All I have to do is put in the drawings, say, the project number. I'll request the new project number, figure of agreement, and I'll get the paper. My part is very done. It's not going to take very long. I can probably add it all together.
So it's realistic to say that next summer.
You know, with the caveat that I don't know how long it's going to take us. That's the
And I'm just going to, you have a two-part, but I'm going to interject and just say, we're also, our boilers will last a couple of years if they need to. So if we run into a lead time after we have a state ed time, they'll last. It kind of, it plays with the schedule of how we roof the building a little bit, and some coordination has to occur beyond that. But Dave's assured us that they'll operate, they're at end of life, but they're operable end of life.
Yeah, in the last EPC contract I did, we replaced all the LED lighting at night. I came in at 3 o'clock every night and I installed 9 tractor trailer loads of light fixtures over the course of a year. So, we did 50, 60, 75 a night, and we take on this room and we might only get half of it done tonight. We go back in and do the other half the next night, and we did it on second shift. And again, those are people that went to work that would normally be laid off in the wintertime. So, it was advantageous to a contractor to say, yeah, we'll jump on and work on that EPC project because we can keep people working.
And the second part, I think, is maybe a question for you. 18 years is a long time. You were the gentleman, you were working for the school district when you realized there was no savings. Who is the onus on for monitoring that to ensure that there is an energy savings and a financial savings? Like, is it a staff member here? And
It does.
when that staff member changes?
So I would say it's combined, right? Or shared is the right word. It's going to be business office, buildings and grounds, and also architectural firm. Hey, here's what we're seeing. Well, this doesn't seem right. Let's dig into this.
In year 5, you're not seeing energy savings.
And there are variables, because I asked the question about, would it 5 years from now, you decide you're going to add on a whole nother wing to the building? Well, you can't ask your EPC vendor to guarantee energy savings when you've added a whole additional wing onto your building. So there's energy calculations that go into that, and they would do a benchmark at that point before construction, and then say, okay, we've added on this much energy, so that's what we have to add into before we start our guarantee again. And that's all, as that happens, because it happens often in 18 years, that they just take the benchmark on the day before you start construction, and at the end of construction, they'll do another benchmark of where we are using energy then, and they'll say, okay, well, you're using, $10,000 a year more by adding on that wing, so the guarantee can't be at the previous number, it's gotta be $10,000 higher.
Third part of the question. Let's say if after 5 years, the business office and the buildings and grounds crew and the superintendent and the architect recognize that there's not the savings that they thought. Is it a retroactive payment, so then the EPC vendor would go back and reimburse for all of the years that there was no energy?
I don't know, because when I was there, Peru was receiving the money before I got there. So they had already for about a year been receiving that money. I just know they paid it faithfully every year and guaranteed it. And again, because the state education department's involved in this, state education department isn't gonna let you get ripped off either, because they signed on the dotted line saying that this is a viable project as well.
And Heidi, I think that monitoring too has to be the contractor.
Yeah.
Because the contractor's not just gonna take the school's word. that
Exactly.
You got it.
save
Yep.
money. So there's probably a lot of.
Thanks, Mark.
back and forth.
I was gonna add that in there, that they're not just going to write you a check because you say you're not getting the energy savings. They're gonna come in and try and prove you are,
So
so.
it's full of checks and balances.
Correct.
Okay.
Us wanting the money and them not wanting to give it to us.
Right.
And as long as we're saving energy, then we're all happy,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And I think I'm done.
I've had experience doing EPCs, and closing the envelope is always the biggest saving. But we saw savings that were greater, while I was still there, than what we suggested. So I've always supported these, right?
And that's why I really think the number, and while the number shocked me the other day, until they do the detailed energy audit and they come up with everything that they can find, they could easily find another $500,000 worth of energy savings that we can inflate that number even a little bit more and do something else that isn't on the list. There may be an air handler we can pull out of the capital project and do, and maybe Steve can replace some wood doors or something for you because we've got some money. So until we do that, I don't have the right answer.
So here's where we're at, and I think we're gonna cut it, because we are gonna have to talk to these gentlemen about the one proposal we received. We're gonna talk briefly in executive session, so I'm gonna ask you to hang out for, it's probably gonna take us 20 or so minutes to do the rest of our meeting to get there, maybe a little bit longer. But there's a motion right here on the agenda now. Basically, the discussion that I'm asking you to have, I'm recommending that you allow the district to go forward with an EPC project. That doesn't mean we're committing to millions of dollars. That means we're committing to, if we have favorable numbers, when we get to the end of the proposal and we get the energy performance survey back, we can still stop. And I think that either one or both of you already said that. Looking to say we're going forward with a project. That means we're going forward with a project at the 78% building rate ratio. I will tell you that in Buildings and Grounds, we talked about this and said, why wouldn't we go out to our taxpayers to ask them to help us get the other 10%? I totally agree, but right now, we're just talking about the board saying we're gonna move forward, continue to look at this project, knowing that with the board approval, it's at that 78% number for reimbursement. Then when we get through the rest of our meeting and do executive session, we may come out afterwards and pick a provider to do the audit that's required. And it will attach a price to that when we get in executive session. We won't talk about it in public until after, because we've got to have that conversation in private first. So that's kind of where we are. So I don't want you to think that this first vote that I'm asking, that's on the agenda, that I'm recommending that we say yes to. And again, it's up to you folks. I want to do this first, because if the answer is no around the table, the rest of the conversation stops, right? So we're trying to do it in the correct order so you folks can all have the proper input on that. So once it gets to the floor, whatever other discussion you have to have, we can ask some more questions. But if we can get it to the floor, we can start the discussion and then have a vote. And then we know if we have to make them stay and talk more, or if we're all done here with them this evening. Does that make sense? Good enough. So if you have other questions, we can ask them during the discussion piece. How about that? I would recommend doing the motion now.
All right, so you heard the recommendation by Mr. Ward, and be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Hudson Falls Central School District approves moving forward with the energy performance contract. We have a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mike,
Yeah, they get it.
seconded by Vince. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Stick around, gentlemen.
Okay.
You got
Have a good-
public
please.
comments.
Okay, so we'll move forward. We have public comment. Anybody have anything they'd like to share? Stand up, state your name.
It is.
So it's, the savings are guaranteed, Herb. The savings are guaranteed. Anything that's installed has a warranty, like anything else we buy. When the warranty runs out, we're in charge of fixing it during the warranty.
It's not an 18-year warranty.
You, correct.
I would be willing to bet, and again, everyone's a little different, it's a 1-year parts and labor, and the LED components I know are typically more than 10 years.
But yes. Right. Warranty and guarantee, and it sounds the same, but I get what you're asking. Did I make sense? Okay. When the bulb goes out in 17 years, yes, you gotta replace it. Nobody else is coming in to do it.
Be an LED driver though.
Herb, you'll be sitting on the beach in the Bahamas, don't worry about it.
That's a good question, though. That's a good question.
Mrs. French?
Hi, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Mr. Ward and also to let the board know, we had a nice start to the school year. We had very few glitches, and the weeks leading up to school, I was driving by, stopped in, and we had a lot of teachers here getting ready for the kids, and it was a really joyous and happy start to be able to get back to normal. The kids seem very happy to be in school. I know at the high school, our attendance rate is showing that we're doing well at this start here. So it's just been, it's a really great start. So I just want to share that it's good to be back.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Yes, and at the kindergarten center today, it was nice to see all our little new students come in with no masks and excited to be there, and, the kindergarten and pre-K, it's just, it's so exciting to go back to a normal, we have tables in our classrooms now, and the kids can sit next to each other, we can have our rugs back, and it's really exciting to be back to normal. So we've had a great start.
Excellent.
Mr. Ward, I appreciate you taking the time to see us.
You gotta, hey, if I didn't see the AM and the PM pre-Kers, my wife would let me know about it. So, yeah, no, I did, it was great, the energy, I don't want to cut in, but, because I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, the energy across the district has been fantastic. So I appreciate everybody making that happen, and hoping to continue that momentum for 8 years. So for a long time.
Excellent. Anybody else? Well, you kind of stole my thunder for the President's Report for the welcoming staff and students. It feels good to hear all the nice comments and everything. And honestly, and I'm speaking for everybody here, we love seeing you guys show up to the meetings because we want to hear what you have concerns of, or if there's good positive things like this, we love to hear that. That's why we're all here. We wouldn't be here otherwise. So thank you very much for coming. I'm very happy to say that we're extremely happy with Mr. Ward and the stuff he's accomplished over the summer with the help of the teachers and the staff. So thank you very much. The second thing, the board the Board of Education does a retreat every year with through NISBA, and this year our retreat was outstanding as it was last year. I myself found it. We kind of worked on some governance, concerns and questions that we always have questions ourselves as far as how to communicate properly and what's best for the board. And we finally came to like a procedure that basically taught us how to communicate as far as appropriate action. Obviously we always work on our goals, and and pretty much anybody else have anything that they wanted to share about that, Mr. Ward? Anybody?
I think it's important. We have a couple new members, right? Bringing them into the fold, letting them ask questions they need to ask, or just listen to the other people talk about how they may have been surprised by things when they first joined the board, because sometimes we don't want to ask questions. But it was a good night. It was 14 months in. I think we're learning each other's personalities, and that's important with the work that we do. It's one of the most important things that I found in my career. If we can't figure out how to get along and understand who each other are, we don't operate effectively together. So that's I'm happy to see that. I mean, not that we weren't working on it last year, but like, it feels like that rhythm's happening.
Absolutely. And to add on to that, with Mr. Canady and Mr. Fitzgerald, we have not missed a beat. They filled some big shoes, and I'll tell you, we are just moving forward with our vision, and that's what it's about. And it's about reaching out to all you and letting you know that we are definitely here for you. We want to hear from you. So that's really important to us. So that's all I have.
Good enough.
I was just going to say, as a new board member, I thought that whole experience was fantastic, helping me get up to speed, helping me understand kind of how everything operated. A little disappointed in our team building exercise. My team didn't
Someone
make
better
it
talk
move.
about that.
We scored low on the NASA exercise.
We didn't do well.
We were not even average.
Better luck next year, hopefully.
Yes. It's a great team building experience, I'll tell you. We failed at it.
Oh, and we were only one group of like 4
Yeah.
people. The other ones did great, and our score was really low for
Yes.
some reasons.
Very low.
But we had a good time and laughed a lot.
We did. Okay, that concludes the president's report. We move on with committee.
It's me, right? Is it committees first?
It skipped you.
Am I after the committees?
I think you're after, but you
All
probably
right.
should go now,
All
right?
right, let's just do it, yeah. So, because we're all on the same roll, so just want to talk about the energy. I don't want to belabor it because everybody said it perfectly, and I don't need to say it again. So I'll leave it as the energy is fantastic. Have a couple of nice things that were shared, and I won't share names or things like that, but a very nice email about one of our youngest students coming into the district and having just a fantastic experience transitioning here. So thanks to all the people that make that happen. These aren't the letters you get every day. I do get enough, I would say, so I'm happy and proud to have that. I also wanted to just say something without attaching a name to it from one of our teachers who got tenure, and I think maybe speaks to how many of them feel, but I'm glad they reached out and shared this, and I think Jeff will forward it on to the full board so that you have it. But just thank you for giving me the opportunity of being a Hudson Falls teacher, hopefully for many years to come. I'm greatly appreciative and fortunate to be where I am professionally, and look forward to continuing my efforts of serving the community as a teacher. Go Tigers. So I hope that speaks for a lot of people here. That's how we want folks to feel. So great energy, and let's keep it moving. I did share out the first Friday enrollment, and I'm not even worried about bringing it up again. That traditionally comes out to you folks. We are down a few students from last year. You could see that it's not substantial, and when we look at it by grade level, you'll see that we have an exceptionally large 9th grade class this year, if you've been watching the trends over the year. So a lot of energy and effort going into our freshman class this year, no doubt. So that's really what I had for you tonight, but it's rolling, and it's rolling in a good way.
Okay, so we'll move forward with the committee meetings, the committee reports. First is personnel, Mr. Canadian.
We have the instructional, there's no administrative resignation.
You don't have to, if anybody has any questions pertaining to that one.
Just a general overview, Mr. Canini, of, and I can do it if you'd like.
Sure.
I can jump. I got it. I can jump in. Sorry.
I always say, anybody have any questions? Good.
Yeah.
By consent.
So as I shared in the update, we were fully instructionally staffed, and that was to the credit of our administrative team and all the folks that served on the interview committees. They started that process, was it March this year, Mike? We backed it up by several months, and we were still working right till the end, but we were working till the end on just a couple. So you're going to see some appointments on there, you're going to see some resignations, you're going to see some rescindments of appointments. Those are folks that we appointed at the last meeting who decided they found a position someplace else that fit them better. You're also going to see in that we have an individual who we appointed at a 4-year probationary that's going to a 3, and just so that's out in public, what that's all about is that if a teacher's been previously tenured and they provide us a proof of that, along with a couple other documents that we need, we can then appoint them to a 3-year tenure. So that's what that's all about. And the one person had a great reason for not getting their stuff in. I won't say why, because that kind of, we'll point that employee out. But for certain, she had better things to do than get paperwork for me. Yeah, I'm not going to say, because it would point her out. But believe me, she had a really great reason for not being able to get that to us right away. The biggest thing I wanted to point out this month is the number of volunteers that we're appointing for the rec program. And Kevin and I talked about a little bit at some point, maybe having Aaron Dudley come in and just do a presentation on what's involved in that rec program now and how that program has grown over the last few years or several years or whatever the correct time frame is. But a lot of people are volunteering their time to make that work for our kids. And there's some paid appointments in there too. It takes all those folks to make it run, but I wanted especially to say thank you to everybody and a special thanks to the people who volunteer. And all our volunteers are fingerprinted, and that's why they're all board appointed. All these folks go through the complete background check that they should before they're around our children. So just putting that out there. That's it in a nutshell. If there's any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? So by consent, that pass.
There's,
So good. I 100% my vote or whatever my vote.
Okay. Okay.
I'm also going to abstain from voting. My wife is going to be appointed as nurse.
got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, gentlemen, for
Thank you so much. Okay, we move on to athletics. The chair, Mr. Fitzgerald.
We did not have a meeting last month, but we do have a couple quick notes that our athletic director wanted me to pass along. Fall sports have started, off to a great start. We have 260 kids in grades 7 through 12 participating across 9 different sports. Big highlight, they just had their first night game under the lights at Moran Derby Park for the boys soccer team. Went very well. Looking forward, I guess I got a few more scheduled.
So I'll just go over that very briefly and submit that for approval. In the general fund, we had 3.7 million in receipts and 3.7 million also in disbursements, leaving a total balance in the general fund of 8.9 million, and total cash on hand of about 10.7 million. Does anyone have any questions on the treasurer's report? Okay, and then we also had the extracurricular account balances from July in our board packets, and not, being the summertime, there wasn't a lot of movement in those accounts, but I did just want to call out, there was some movement both in and out of the basketball account, and that was for a summer league that was organized and administered here at Hudson Falls or by Hudson Falls Basketball, and just think it's great that they're, giving the kids opportunity to play throughout the summer as well.
So you heard the treasurer's report. Do you have a motion to approve? Second by? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That carries. Moving on to transportation, Dr. Steele.
Read the DOT report there and the trip report. There's a little paragraph in the student pickup and drop off. Some good news this month is we did finally get one of our new buses that's been registered and assigned to drivers and rotation. The other ones we're still waiting on. No word yet, but we're getting those. Just a short paragraph on the driver shortage. There is a national driver shortage, as we all know. Hudson Falls helping open house for potential residents that were curious what it would be like to drive a bus. We held this in the middle school parking lot. Gained a lot of positive feedback from a decent amount of people who attended. Hopefully, there'll be someone there that's looking to get into bus driving in the future. We did lose 3 drivers last year to retirement, but so far we've been able to shuffle some people around, and we have all the routes covered. We're ready to go. Paradise at the end with bus cleaning and the entire region grade, and then the bottom is always gasoline and propane costs there.
Do you have any questions? Okay, moving on to building and grounds. Mr. Yellow?
We also did not have a meeting, but I think we covered just about everything we needed to.
Point well taken. Okay, moving on to policy.
Okay. You are going to see 3 policies in there for first read. I'm going to talk about 2 of them and then pass the third one on to Mr. Ward. So the first one is policy 7520. That is a policy about suicide. It was revised due to updated guidance from state ed and to inform everybody about the new 988 hotline, which connects callers directly to crisis counselors. This policy speaks to annual professional development that staff should receive on risk factors, warning signs, response procedures, and resources available. So you'll see there's a red line, a clean version, and the policy pulse in here. And then the second one is regular board meetings and rules, policy 1510. That one was revised. This is all from Erie One BOCES, by the way. Revised in response to amendments to the open meetings law that allowed us to meet virtually during COVID. So in extraordinary circumstances, board members are allowed to attend a meeting virtually as long as certain conditions are met, and they're all listed on pages 2, 3, and 4 of the policy that's in your board docs here. And that's all I have for that one. I'm going to pass FMLA to Mr. Ward to discuss.
You got it. And I'm going to add one thing about 1510, or 2 things about 1510.
Okay.
So we passed a resolution as a board a couple months ago. It was the same exact stuff that's in this policy now. So we had that resolution as a stopgap in between waiting for the policy updates to come to us. And worth knowing that the governor did not extend the state of emergency yesterday, so that expired at midnight last night. So those old COVID virtual meetings where nobody had to be in the same place to have a quorum, that is all gone. Now we're on the exact rules of 1510, our only set of rules to follow at this point. Family Medical Leave Act. So this has been a long and arduous journey. You folks started working on a leave policy. I think it was about paternity and maternity a long time before I started, probably the April before I started. So it's been a while. It went through a lot of different iterations, and at one point we had several conversations about it. We've looked at financial impacts and provided that information to the committee. This most recent one also was reviewed by council, and there was an MOA that needed to be attached to it, and I know through my updates I've informed the board that have conceptual agreement to that MOA with every single unit here at the school. And the reason for that is this Family Medical Leave Act, the changes that are being recommended for review by the board for a first read, provide an enhanced benefit to all of our employees. And that was the intent of the board at that time. We know that membership has changed some, committees have changed some. The policy committee met and went through it. We spoke about it again. The committee's comfortable bringing it back to the full board for a first read, and then pending any feedback for a second read and approval next month. And the biggest change is that it allows any employee who has an event in their life that qualifies for Family Medical Leave Act time, and that the employee themselves has that leave available to them, can take 12 weeks of paid using their accrued sick, personal, vacation if they have it. It isn't extra leave beyond that, but it lets them access that leave without multiple approvals through the Board of Education. And that was where we ended up with it. There is a cost associated with that, but it was about providing an enhanced benefit to our employees in hopes to support them and make them want to be a part of Team Tiger for a long, long time. That's kind of the general gist of it. I'm happy to answer questions beyond that, but really you can see it's in blue and green, the changes we made or are recommending in the first read, and I'm happy to have any discussion about it and bring it back to the policy committee if necessary, or Amanda would bring it back. We'll both bring it back to the committee. So if you have questions, please feel free to get it out there. This is not one that every district does. This is a Hudson Falls. This is a Hudson Falls only. The additions we're making. Just no questions on that. And again, if you have one between now and the next policy committee, if you could let Amanda or I know, or Kelly, we'll get them and try to get answers for you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Moving on to advocacy.
We did not meet hold on to your pants. But I have nothing tonight.
Groovy.
Awesome. Okay, so that concludes our committee meeting report. Moving on to new business, we have a couple of field trip requests, Spain field trip and the France field trip.
Yeah, so if there's very specific questions, we have Mrs. Hickey out there in the audience. She can answer them. But you have two requests there, one for a French trip, one for a Spanish trip. Mrs. Major is the Spanish trip person. She's not hiding back there someplace. Okay. I will tell you my thought on this. It is time to let our kids do these things again. And they've done considerable work, Mrs. Hickey and Mrs. Major, getting the proposals together. There is a cost to students. You can see all that in the documents there. But it's time. You had approved one last year pending the travel advisory level going down to purple or whatever the right color was. I would recommend we allow them to go as long as Americans are allowed to go overseas. One of the biggest changes that you folks shared with me when we met in the classroom was that there's no longer a test to get back into the States, which was a hiccup for a school near us last year with one student who was positive and a chaperone had to stay behind. So now that is not part of getting back into the country. If there's any other specific questions, I'm going to direct them out to the audience.
I just have a quick question. And this came up before COVID as well. Insurance. Nobody expected to have shutdowns and things of that nature. Did our families get reimbursed last time? And is that the plan going forward if something like that should happen?
Contracts are not canceled. This is the first time grants have been on the same time. But the contracts are canceled the last time. The parents did receive most of their loans back. There was some that did not receive back. Just because we outside of that time. Had them on one of the lower insurance. So the parents can choose entirely. This year we are requiring all parents to sign up for as part of the cost, the highest insurance plan, which will get them all of their money back and they can also take the money.
Thank you.
And I'll say one more thing. Thanks to you and Mrs. Major for putting the trips together and the other folks that go with you. And when these guys get done in about 30 seconds, I'm going to say have a great trip.
100% in favor.
So
So be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Hudson Central School District approves the France and Spain field trips for the 2022-2023 school year. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mike, seconded by Linda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Congratulations.
I already went.
Okay, so Mr. Ward already went. So at this point in time, we do have to enter into executive session for two reasons. One is to discuss the EMP, the EPC, and a personnel matter.
Yep.
Do a motion, right?
Yep.
I hear a motion to enter executive session. So moved by Okay, so we've entered back into regular session. At this time, we are going to vote on approving.
Yep, looking for a motion to approve the Danforth Company as the EPC provider for the full energy audit as necessary for the next step in investigating our EPC options.
Do we have a motion?
What'd you get?
Mike. Seconded by Heidi. All in favor? Opposed? That carries.
9-0, right? We're still 9. Good enough.
That concludes our,
Motion to adjourn.
do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Who'd you get?
Amanda?
Okay.
Seconded by Kristen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries.
All right, and it is 9:11. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great night, everyone.
Yeah, have a great night.